realized it.
We were just at 50, just 30 episodes ago.
It's just kind of like my age. I was just at 35, and
I know.
now I'm not.
It happens fast.
It does.
So it's good to have everybody back together. I think we haven't had all three of us here in like, I don't know how many weeks. So Brandon, Carson, great to have you back. And we have a really, really awesome guest today, Mark Hunter.
Mark brought it out of all of us. Mark was here, so we all got here.
That's right. We all made it happen and made it go.
Carson's got the swag. I drove home from Dollywood breaking all the speed limits so I could get in on time.
We're glad to have you.
You mean you gave up Dollywood just for me?
Yeah, I was all day Dollywood yesterday, over 8 miles on my feet. I had it on my watch. I told Zoe anything she wanted to do, we do it. We went on those soaking wet water rides like 6 times.
Well, yes. Good job in getting back.
It was a good day. Yeah, let's get to this. This is going to be fun. I don't want to take away from Mark.
Yeah. So, and if you're online, hey, Dave, welcome from Indy. If you're online, let us know you're here. Say hello to Mark. Let us know you have his book. But Mark, let's talk a little bit about your background, and then we're going to get into sales credibility, which I don't know why credibility should be an issue in sales, but we'll sort that out today.
Can we start this way, Carson? We have a sales legend in the house with us. Like we've got to at least acknowledge that, right?
The Hunter. I mean, like it's amazing how long I've probably followed Mark for well over a decade. And I just, what I love most about Mark is like, he still puts out so much to the community, with regular content and just thought-provoking statements. And he's so at the pulse of the sales community. So I couldn't agree more.
I got to put food on the table, man. That's why I keep putting out content,
You know what Mark did too? He took a really big risk and had me as a guest on his show a couple months ago. Yeah, that's pretty generous of him.
That's okay. I've had Carson on my show too. See, but I had to
separate. I expect that.
That was a bigger risk. Bill McCormick. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Bill's in the house. We love Bill. Yeah, great guy. Love it. Upstate New York.
That's it. All sales are social, Bill.
That's right.
All right.
Well, Mark, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how that ties into what we're going to talk about today about credibility in sales.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I am known as the sales hunter. And people always ask me, what was your name before you changed it? No, I owe this to my dad. I mean, what a cool name. I tell you what, whenever we go out to dinner and they want to know your name, I always just say Hunter, because it's always Hunter, party of 2. It's really cool. Anyway, okay, enough about that. I got into sales purely by accident. If you read my book, A Mind for Sales, of which Carson's got a copy of it there, I detail the story in the first couple chapters because I did not want to go into sales. I was going to go into marketing. Actually, I wanted to be a disc jockey in college. I was a disc jockey in college, but that's a separate story. And the only reason I got into sales was because I got 3 speeding tickets the last 2 months of college, and I could not afford car insurance. I had bought a brand new car. That was the reason for my speeding ticket. See, I can blame the car. It wasn't me. I had apartment rent, and I now had car insurance I couldn't afford. So I literally had to get a job that supplied me with a car. That is how I wound up in sales. Now, to say I was an overnight success, I got fired from that first sales job. That means I gave up the Buick. I got a second sales job, second Buick. You know what? I got fired from that sale. It wasn't until my third sales job that I finally began to realize what sales was. Because I was treating sales as if you were my customer. You were a bowling pin. My job was just to knock you down and take your money. And it wasn't until my third boss sat me down and really instilled me. You don't really know what's going on with your customers. You haven't taken the time to figure out what your customers want. And it wasn't like it was an overnight, light bulb, boom, suddenly I'm brilliant. No. But I began to realize that sales was really about serving the customer. And when you listen to the customer and serve the customer, it's amazing at what happens. So I was in corporate roles for about 17 years. And then 25 years ago, I bailed. I went out on my own. I've been doing this for 25 years.
Wow.
Really scary. So please send me a big check, would you? Because I got people to feed,
I love it.
I love the journey, Mark. Like,
Yeah.
it's funny because when you think about great prolific sales content creators, authors, legends like yourself, you don't see those missteps per se. And it's funny because I often reference the same things. Like, I made it very far on hard work and adrenaline, but I started in that pound the phone, one call close environment. Brandon, we've talked about that before
Mhm.
too. And I thought that was what sales was. And it's not. And I didn't really even realize more until, honestly, like my 30s and 40s than I've ever realized in my 20s about sales. And it's ironic how we have those experiences, and that you can have what is perceived to be a lack of success, only to have that be part of your success journey. What have been the biggest
Mm.
things that have changed, but also stayed the same, that you've learned over the years in sales?
Well, some of the biggest things, and this was a lesson I move again. I did everything wrong initially. I didn't realize you really needed to have a peer group. I didn't realize you really needed to surround yourself with successful people, with other people who you can learn from. I thought I could be this maverick, this kid, because I was in my 20s, and I just thought I knew it all. And so I had to learn. I had to learn that you got to surround yourself with people. The other thing is this: is that it's amazing. You can't fake your way to success. You just can't. You've got to live it. You have got to live it. And it comes through. Customers pick up on it. And I think that was my problem early on. I didn't want to be in sales. This was the last thing so I was going through the motions, just doing the least possible work to try to get the most amount of money and go on and survive for the next day. And until I really began to take a step back and realize this is a people business. This is people. This is why I say sales is not a job. Sales is not a profession. Sales is a lifestyle. And it's a lifestyle of just helping people. I mean, initially people would ask me, which I would not say I was in sales. I was embarrassed to use the term sales. And it took me a number of years to overcome that. But now I'm
Hey,
proud
Mark,
to be in sales.
do you mind me asking? Sorry to interrupt. Why? Because I think there's, like, I know I got one daughter who is studying sales as part of her business degree. And then she also will tell me, but I don't want to go into sales. And I know it's because the perception for you didn't want to go into sales. Why was that?
Well, why was that? Because my view was used car salespeople, the slimy stuff, all that
Yeah.
type of stuff, and I felt I was just trying to rip people off because again, I didn't understand what sales was. Yesterday, I happened to be with a class of seniors, University of Texas, Dallas, and I was talking to them, and one of them shared with me. He said, how do I go about this whole deal when I'm trying to close a deal? I feels like I'm just begging them for money. And I go, take a step back and look at it this way. If you believe that you can help someone, you owe it to them to reach out to them. That's why we prospect. That's why I firmly believe that we prospect. 2, if you believe in your solution, that your solution can help them, you're not asking them to buy. You're asking them to come alongside you so you can help them. And it's an investment. And collectively, we're going to help you achieve this outcome. Because my definition of sales is to help you see and achieve what you did not think was possible. Now, stop and think about that for a moment. That's the definition of a good salesperson, and that's the definition of a great leader. Because really, a great leader is a great salesperson. A great salesperson is a great leader. Now, I'm not talking about the one-time wonders. I'm talking about the people who are on the top of the hill, year in, year out, consistently. They absolutely believe in the outcome. They're going to help them, and they would never ask their customer to buy something if they did not firmly believe that it was going to help them, if it was not going to help them achieve the outcome that they wanted. That's why I say I don't ask people to buy. I ask people to invest.
You just hit a really, I think, important point about prospecting. Is you're saying prospecting, right? Is you're basically, if you have the viewpoint or the mindset that, hey, I'm here to help you, right? Or to me, if somebody, and Mark, I'd be interested to see how you help people kind of switch to that mindset. But if they really believe that, prospecting naturally becomes, I would think, fairly easy. To the degree that you don't believe it, I think prospecting gets harder and harder and harder and more difficult.
You are so spot on there, because if all you're focused on is the product, you are going to get sick of it very quickly. This is going to turn your stomach. But again, if you're focused on how you can help people, I tell people there's 2 exercises I want you to go through. I want you to take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On one side, write down names of 10 customers. And on the other column, write down the outcomes that you helped them achieve, not what you sold them, the outcomes. And then you give yourself a big hug and you go, I love myself. And then you ask yourself, who are those people? Who, and you want to be calling the same type of people. And here's the way I look at it. If I have a problem, trust me, my kids would tell you I have plenty of problems, and you could help me, I would want you to reach out to me. I would be upset if I found out later that you could have helped me and you didn't. See, so that's the level of that's what prospecting is all about. Prospecting is about helping people. Now, here's the deal. Tom will say, you're the one calling me and you can help me. I don't know. I will say, I don't know who Tom is. So you're right. I'm going to blow you off initially. And that's where we go through that dance process, this prospecting phase where you're creating value, you're establishing a relationship, you're creating credibility. Now I begin to realize Tom really wants to help me. Then I begin to listen. Then I begin to hear. And then I begin to realize Tom is doing me a favor. Thank you, Tom, for reaching out to me. That's how you slowly work people through this prospecting. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. Yeah.
So what I think I hear you're saying is that's credibility.
Yeah, you gotta have that mindset as well. I think so much of this is, to your point, Mark, it's about what value can you bring to the prospect? And it's not always about your products and solutions. Sometimes it's about what you as the person can do. Often the biggest value that I can bring a prospect is that I can demystify the giant behemoth that I work for. And the value, the relationships, the resources, the investments, all that stuff, I get paid to get that on behalf of my client. And that's the value that I can bring. And sometimes I'll even steer them toward the competition if that's the right thing to do. But it's all in this ever-loving pursuit of going out and becoming the trusted advisor, earning the right to be the trusted advisor. And heads up, sales leaders, you set the tone. You set the culture. You've got to make sure that you establish a culture that has a prospecting mindset and that is about value, not trying to go toe-to-toe with your competition based on their strengths, because you're not going to win that way. You've got to go out, be outcome-driven, but understand your clients.
I love what you're saying there, because you focus on the outcome, and we don't know what the outcome is that the customer's looking for until we just stop and listen. But we want to get into this pitch mode so quickly. And how many sales leaders? Well, you're not moving them along fast enough. You're not moving them. Hold it. I always contend that we will close the deal faster by going slower initially.
I love it.
Go slow to move
fast.
Right?
Go slow to move fast.
Right. You go slow during that discovery. There's this race to the demo, right? Race to the demo. And then what happens is the demo becomes this vomit show where you're showing the customer all kinds of stuff that they're not interested in. And then they go, you know what? I don't think this is the right solution. Or I think we need to go look. I think we need to, and boom, the thing falls apart. But because sales leaders are challenging their salespeople, get to the demo. For some reason that's this mark. Boom, get to the demo, and big mistake.
It's part of the sales journey. It's a checkbox. You got to get there.
Yeah. But
So Mark, let me ask you a question, and Brandon, I'm definitely interested. Brandon and all of us, we talk a lot about now the importance of following the buyer journey and supporting the buyer journey rather than forcing the seller journey, right? The demo you're talking about is forcing the seller journey on the customer. Come on, we got to get the demo because that's what I need in my seller journey that's there. Do you, as far as, do you spend time, and it sounds like it, right? Because there's really no way you could provide that level of help, support, credibility, expertise, unless you truly understand a little bit about that buyer journey and are working to influence it rather than to change it and to move it into your seller journey. Are we looking at that right?
Yeah. Here's a couple things. It's interesting. The customer's never going to share with us enough information until they have a low level of trust with us. When they finally trust us, there's that level of confidence, that credibility we've established. Then the customer begins opening up. But again, what happens is too many times when we're on the seller's journey, we race past that first step and we don't establish that. And then we wonder why we're not getting the real information from the customer. Slow it down, establish the relationship, let them get to know you and you get to know them. And then there's a level of credibility that begins to percolate up. And the more it comes up, guess what? The more open the customer is going to be. The other day, I was on the phone with a VP of sales of a company, and I was amazed at the information, the confidential information that was being shared with me. And I've done very little work with this company. I spoke at a sales meeting for them. That was the extent of what I've done for them. And this VP of sales was just opening up. And it's like, wow, I must have very quickly, between getting ready for the SKO for them and doing it and post after that, established a real level of credibility to be able to have this person share with me that level of information. But what does that do? That puts me in a better position to help them. Because now I can begin to say, here's some things that you might want to look at. Here's some solutions. Here's some ideas. What does that do? Creates value for the customer.
What are some simple steps, Mark, today that sellers should be leveraging, should be putting in place on the day-to-day to establish the credibility that they claim to seek? And I ask this, I love, again, that you shared your origin story. You built a body of work that didn't start out as you wanted it to or as you envisioned it to. And I think that's true of a lot of sellers. If you start out in your career, if you look back on a career at our ages, it didn't go the way I envisioned, but it went very well based on a lot of sequential steps. What should sellers be prioritizing today to build the credibility that they seek?
Well, there's two things. One is, who are you associating with? This is so key. You've got to be associating with the right people for two reasons. One, you become the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I believe Jim Rohn said that line initially. And what happens is you begin to pick up their nuances. You begin to pick up their language. But as those people in their circle see them, they will in turn see you. Second is this. You have to establish a level of consistency. Carson, you made a comment that I've been out there consistently out there on social media for years and years. Yeah, you're right. Now, consistency doesn't necessarily mean it has to be daily or hourly. It can be weekly. It can be whatever. But you got to demonstrate consistency, because in this era of fakeness that we have in our world, people are looking for authenticity. And authenticity takes on different forms. Totally get that. But one of them is this level of consistency, because nobody wants to do business with a salesperson they can't count on. Nobody wants to do business with a salesperson that they don't know if they're going to show up for this meeting, they're going to be there for that. It's going to happen. So you actually, I always say, your reputation arrives before you do. One of the big things, this has never happened before. I was at a networking event last night, sat down at a dinner. Gentleman next to me, oh, you're Mark Hunter. I just read the first 2 chapters of your book. Okay, now that is literally the first time that has ever happened. And but it was amazing. We had a great conversation. I said, hey, would you hurry up and read chapter 3 through 18 or whatever it is, and then tell me what you think of the book. But it was very interesting because, this was a networking dinner. Again, nobody really knew anybody. And it could have been an awkward conversation. But this guy made us say, you're Mark Hunter. I recognize your picture from the book. I've just read a couple of chapters of your book. So what does that do? That means my reputation arrived before I did. Mm-hmm. Now, it wasn't about me and the book. I wanted to find out, hey, tell me about what you're doing. What brings you here? What da-da-da-da-da-da. We have to flip the script as rapidly as possible to be able to have the 100% of the conversation about the customer. It's not about us. We may use our reputation to bring them in, but then immediately flip it and ask questions about them.
Mark, so I had, timing wise today, I had, and I'll say the company's open text. They're in their SKO, and so one of their sales leaders has become a friend of mine over the last several months. And I guess they were having a conversation around personal brand, around LinkedIn, and I had like 6 or 7 people send me connection requests this morning. And I said, what are you guys doing? What's going on? They're like, oh, we're talking about reputation. And I said, oh, well, perfect. Mark Hunter's going to be on our show. You need to come listen to it. For them all listening, I love what you're saying there is you got to turn it around and be about them. But how do you coach people? How do you use your content or any other LinkedIn activity? We talk a lot about you've got content you publish and you have comments you can publish. These are the 2 ways that you can contribute. What are some of the suggestions you have for sales producers to be able to use the activities they can actually control to even make it about their customers from the very beginning?
Ask questions. Ask questions. Ask for people's opinions. I do this oftentimes, and I don't do it enough. This is shame on me. I'll make a comment and said, what are your thoughts on this? Or what you think of that? I want to engage people in a conversation as rapidly as possible. And one of the ways we do this is I always say, I'll take an online connection and turn it into an offline conversation. Okay, it used to be a landline. Okay, now we just call that a Zoom call or a Teams call for Carson. Okay, we'll keep this in the family. Yeah,
Thank you.
Teams call. But again, it's how do I create more of a conversation, more of a relationship? In fact, it's funny. This morning I was out on LinkedIn, and I was looking at who's looked at my profile over the last several weeks. And man, wow, I probably should be doing this more often. But are there common threads? Or the things that are seen? Are there people that, hey, you know what, they've looked? I need to reach out to them, not to sell them. I don't want to sell them. I just want to get to know them. What's interesting is we can all look at journeys in our sales career where there's been strings of business that have come together because of a person we met years ago, right? There's somebody that we met. I mean, I was sharing this with my wife the other day. I said, man, I'll never forget. There was a dinner I sat down to probably 10 years ago, met an individual, and that has just one connection to it. And I didn't know that. But again, it's nurturing everything you come in contact with, being a person that people want to be able or feel comfortable associating with. I always say my goal is not to be the better part of each person's day. I want to save that for your spouse, your significant other, your kids, whatever. I just want to be one of the better parts of your day. If I can be one of the better parts of your day, then you know what? You're probably going to remember me. Mm-hmm. I don't mean that egotistically, but I mean that, that hopefully then I've earned the right, the honor, and the respect to be able to come back and meet with you again. Wow. That's how we keep things going. I mean, Carson, I have a feeling in the business you're in, a lot of your deals, a lot of situations these are connections that you've made over the years, right?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And the biggest value that you find that you bring, like when you were talking about that, Mark, that resonated deeply with me because I started thinking about years ago, these symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationships that I would create with these other vendors and other partners, and sometimes even with my competition, to basically say, hey, I can't help this customer, but I know you can. And I know you don't do this, but I do. Let's establish a relationship. And these paid so many dividends. You don't always realize it at the time, but going out and thinking about these ways where I can help you, and I'm willing to make those investments. Like, and sometimes you'll make a lot of deposits and maybe that vendor, that person doesn't ever reciprocate, but often they do. And sometimes in mysterious and unexpected ways. It's amazing what happens if you show up to serve.
You know what's something about showing up and serving? You feel good. You know, when I could make a recommendation for somebody, hey, go talk to this person, go see that person, or connect to people, you know, there's nothing in it for me, but you know what? I feel good. And when I feel good, it's amazing. I'll share with you a very quick story, and anybody can Google this. Bob Eckert is the retired CEO of Mattel Toys. Years ago, I was doing some consulting work for Mattel Toys shortly after Bob had been there. And Bob was replacing a CEO by the name of Jill Berard. Again, you can go ahead and Google that. She was a very difficult lady. And these two are total polar opposites. And Bob's staff was very taken back by Bob's style. And I asked Bob at a meeting, I said, Bob, for a CEO, you're incredibly gracious. You're incredibly nice. You really show an interest in people. He made a comment to me. First of all, he said, shucks, don't worry. No. I said, no, Bob, get up. He said, here's the deal. I do show an interest in people. I want people to succeed. Because I had seen it the night before and we had been out to dinner. And the wait staff, he was incredibly courteous to the wait staff. Incredibly. You know, this is a guy, CEO, Mattel Corporation. You know, and incredibly gracious. And then he goes on to say, he says, when I'm nice to other people, I make better decisions. Drop the mic on that one. And if you followed Bob's career through Mattel, and he was also on the board of directors of McDonald's Corporation and several other corporations, he went through some very difficult times. But he always weathered the storm and somehow made the right decision. Because when I'm nice and gracious and take interest in people, I make better decisions. That's huge. That's huge.
You know, it reminds me, we've used the quote from Maya Angelou a few times that people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And in so many circles in sales, that's like the antithesis, like it's totally illogical. And yet I believe it's the most logical, the most valuable thing we can do in sales is remember that how we help make people feel. And then what you're tagging onto that is, and then we feel better and we actually make better decisions overall. And we got touchy feely in sales today. I love it.
Whoa, this is going down a wonky, weird road, folks.
Yeah, boy, I don't know.
Mastering modern selling.
Yeah.
So I have a question or a comment, Mark, and then I want to hit Hugh's question here as well. And I know you touched on this earlier, but maybe it's just, I'm a little slow to the game. I'm getting over COVID. So as Brandon says, I'm not thinking as quickly as I usually do. If you're talking to somebody new, graduating from college, coming into business, it seems like if you can start and work in sales and build that, I guess that mindset and the way that you handle yourself and the way that you do things, you're really creating a huge foundation for you to move up executive level and really move up in an organization over time. I can see a no lose situation by building that right mindset right from the beginning and then using it in a sales, because what better way to really hone your craft, if you will, than out there dealing with, selling and sales.
Yeah. And I'm going to add to that, it's funny, but we're also selling as much internal as we are external. I mean, I look at it. I mean, any salesperson for a company, when I was leading a sales team, I always used to crack up. I used to say every quarter, every salesperson has to fight 50 battles and they got to win at least 30 of them. And some of them choose to fight them with customers. Others choose to fight them internally to get their quota changed. But it's like, would you please focus externally? But I mean, it is, but we're always we're always selling at every level. And I'll tell you what, the greatest salespeople today are the ones that create a team of people who want to help them. I talk about a person in my book, A Mind for Sales, who was my greatest leader, John Canavan. And he was just, I'll tell you what, everybody wanted to walk through a wall for the guy because as a salesperson, he was amazing in front of customers, but he lifted everybody up around him, the customer and himself. So, he walked into a room and he put energy into the room. He did not take it out. And it was not self-centered. It was literally creating this aura that anything is possible. And it was just amazing as I got to work with him for a couple of years. The results we were able to achieve against some incredible odds.
Let's hit Hugh's comment here or question, Mark. He's asking, when you failed originally the first 3 times, was it because of your leader? And who inspired you the 4th time?
Have I only failed 3 times? I think I failed about 3,000 times. I think the first couple of times it wasn't the leader. It was my lack of willingness to learn from my leader. And actually, I failed twice initially. The 3rd time I almost failed, but he was able to catch me. The first 2 times, I look at those leaders, and one was not a good leader. I admit that, but I still could have learned. The second one was a great leader. I just chose not to learn. I thought I was so arrogant, so cocky. I thought I knew what I needed to do. And remember, I didn't want to be in sales. See, so you're not going to tell me these sales things because I don't want to do them anyway. I'm going to do it my own way. And it wasn't until my 3rd one that I think I now became paranoid that I could be without a car. I may not have a car to drive. That I finally began to realize what sales is all about. Sometimes in order for us to change, you got to go to the edge of the cliff. You really have to be at that point where you sit there and say, because otherwise you just keep trudging along. And I think if I had not gone through those experiences early on, I would have just been trudging along. So, this is where nobody, and I told this to the students I was with yesterday, getting fired, there's nothing wrong with it. Now, as long as you're not fired for an ethical reason, an ethical or a moral reason, there's nothing wrong with being fired because you learn from it. And it's okay. You're going to come back from it. And you're going to be better than ever. It's no different than in sales. We lose deals. We don't win all. I hate the term win. I never want to win a deal. I earn a deal. I earn a deal. But there's a lot that I don't get. It's okay. What can I learn from it? I establish relationships. I'm going to keep nurturing this along. It's going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming, and it's going to work. Yeah.
I love that we've done this show 80 times, and every single one of them has such unique gold. I don't know that we've talked a ton about the importance of the people that you surround yourself with. Right. I think it's very critical to find the people that are better, that are doing something that maybe you're not performing in, who's performing well in this solution or this bucket. Go ahead and find these people, learn from them, share ideas, brainstorm with them, assimilate what they do into your arsenal. It doesn't take food off the table for you to do what they're doing or vice versa. In fact, it makes everybody better. It elevates the game. The other thing, that epiphany that I think a lot of great sellers have, going from arrogance to selflessness. Hopefully we've all gone through that, right? Like, I was like that in my 20s. I had a lot of success. I thought I didn't need anybody to help me be better. And boy, was I wrong. And I think when we finally have that epiphany, that's what is honestly the gateway to improvement, going from lone wolf to being the consummate team player. Mark, you're the author also of High Profit Selling and High Profit Prospecting. And when I think about high profit, I think about what we're missing out on in the total addressable market. Sometimes I think we are very short-sighted as salespeople. We look at, hey, I need to go out and sell this. I need to go out and sell that. Or I'm going to talk to the people that are easy to get meetings with. Or I'm going to just talk to the people that I inherit relationships with or get introduced to. Prospecting's hard. You've got to figure out what is your message. You got to figure out what is going to resonate with the people that you're reaching out to. But I always think about, from sellers today, there's 2 big areas. You hit on one, it's being outcome driven. The other is being bold and going out and really understanding the total addressable market, the TAM, and what it's going to take. to go out and actually achieve it. It's relationships with your customers at a high level with the right influencers, which isn't always easy to get, development of a C-level acumen, et cetera, but also how to sell internally, how to know who I need inside that I'm going to go to really unlock the coffers so that I can bring to bear the most resources from my customer. How do you believe that sellers today should be approaching that total addressable market in a different way that will make them more successful?
Well, first of all, we have to get outside of our own bubble. We all live, everybody lives in a bubble. And I challenge, somebody always asks me, what's the best sales book to read? And I go, it's Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's not a sales book. That is not a sales book. But boy, I tell you what, it's a great, we have to be able to be willing to expand our horizons. Why? Because it allows us to see things differently. One of the things that I always say, top performers will go into any meeting, any conversation, any activity and say, there's something to be learned here. There is something I'm going to learn here. Average people will go into something and say, there's nothing to learn here. There's not, this is a waste of time. That right there is a mindset difference. If I go into things thinking, I'm going to learn something. We're going to end this. We're going to end this show, and I'm going to challenge myself. What did I learn from the three of you? What did I learn? Because again, every day we have to ask ourselves, and what this does is this then helps us begin looking at this total addressable market in a different way. Because otherwise what happens is we get blinders on. Now, there's something to be said for blinders because success in sales is staying focused. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But at the same time, we got to be aware of what else is going on out there. Because if we can be aware of what else is going on, guess what? We're in a better position to help our customers help their customers. One of the things as salespeople, and I'll ask this of companies I'm working with, and salespeople say, tell me about your customers, okay? Tell me about your customers' customers. And they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. You got to go downstream. We got to go upstream. We got to understand the entire supply chain. And I'm not, and that's not the right term, but what I'm saying is this whole thing from raw materials, whatever it might be, all the way through to customer outcomes. And I don't care what it is that you sell. It's going to somebody else. And because I want to be in a position where I know more about my customers' customers than my customers know about them. Because I love that. Yeah, because if I can bring insights to my customers about their customers, they're going to look at me differently. They're going to go, oh, wow. That's, to me, that's operating at a completely different level. And you know what? Now I'm really starting to understand the buyer's journey. Interesting.
Mark, my head's spinning. So
from
I'm
the
definitely learning
conversation
some
or from
stuff.
COVID?
Well, maybe a little of both. I don't know. But yeah, the conversation's definitely building there. What I heard you say here about knowing your customer's customer, to me, we talk a lot about building your online presence and your LinkedIn presence and whatever. What I hear you saying is that now opens up the door to a whole bunch of other connections, right? If I'm thinking about my customers and then my customers' customers and building connections and healthy connections and relationships with them, oh my God, what value am I going to then provide? It's like I've just hockey sticked my value on the others.
You have hockey sticked it because it also makes it that much easier for your customers to now give you referrals. Think about it.
Exactly.
Because it makes it so much easier for them to refer you, and it makes it easier for you to refer them. Because the whole thing about referrals, I just got to clarify this for a second. It's not a game about getting referrals. It's a game about giving referrals. And if you're focused on giving referrals, stuff will come back to you. Focus on giving. Don't worry about the getting.
Bob Berger will be proud of us, right?
Super powerful there, Mark, is when you think about the customer's customer. A lot of us work in an organization where our organization, whether it's us or somebody else, most likely somebody else, supports that customer's customer, right? Like I work in an organization where we have a lot of managed accounts. And in fact, I've worked in different verticals where customers that I supported in the past became the customer's customer of somebody that I support today. When you start to think outside the box, and this is why I loved your answer. One of many reasons why I loved your answer about total addressable market. Sometimes we fail to think bigger picture and beyond that bubble, beyond that box. If I'm able to take a relationship that I made 3 to 5 years ago in an organization that I supported, where I was a trusted advisor because I understood their business model so well and I was so entrenched, and I'm able to take a relationship from here and bring it to present day and put these folks together and then get the heck out of the way and let them make magic happen, guess what happens there? Your credibility goes up a notch. And all you really did was you were the orchestrator of a beautiful relationship. And I think that's why when you think about the referrals that you can give, and you even think outside the box on ways that you can prospect, that is when I prospect today, which I send sometimes thousands of prospecting messages per week. And when I do that, it is never about a product. It's never about a solution. It is always about ideas that I have for ways that my company and I can uniquely enhance the relationship with this organization because of the people that they serve that we often also serve. Think about that.
It's giving the customer value. And you know what? Don't worry about the business. I love to do the same thing. I have a expression. I say 10 lists. I create 10 lists. In fact, every week I create a 10 list. And it's 10 things that companies can use to help them do their business better. 10 things that a sales leader can do to help them do their business with. And I've got probably hundreds of these now. And I'll put one together and then I email it out. And it's a huge prospecting tool for me. And it's also a reinforcement tool with customers who I'm already doing business with. And they just love it. They just love this stuff. And it's amazing. And I'm not selling. I'm not standing up saying, "Hey, bring me in for your sales kickoff meeting. Bring me in for this, whatever." No, I'm just sharing with them. And it creates conversations and it creates credibility. It creates reputation. It creates a tremendous amount of opportunities that you just keep building on and building on and building on.
I really appreciate our conversation. That so often sales conversations are about what we do, like what we do for the customer and how do we get their attention and how do you move them to the next stage and what do you do when they have objections and I think there's a place for some of that. I think we got somebody here we got to kind of remove from chat. And I like that what we're talking about is it's the things that we can control, but doing it from a place of giving and trusting and believing and knowing that when we do that, it works out and we actually gain in response to it.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a bit here, because the whole thing about is I want to go into this habit of just giving. And, one of the things, in fact, this is an interesting prospecting situation. And I'm sure all of you have seen this. You're prospecting with somebody. You think you've got this prospect. They're going to turn into a customer. And then they go radio silent. They go radio silent on you, right? Or you've had this great conversation and they go silent. And I always say the sale is made in the follow-up. And there's multiple ways we can follow up, but I just keep coming in with more and more ideas that can help them, more and more ways. Just stay in the touch. I mean, I've got there was a client that I finally landed, and it took me over 3 years of just touching. Now, some people might say, "Mark, you're a lousy salesperson because it took you 3 years." It just, but when you get things systematized and you can do things, it's amazing at what you can do. But you've got to be willing to stay in the game. And one of the ways that you stay in the game is, again, as you surround yourself with key people, because you know what? Everybody's gone through this situation. I'm sure all of us here have had major screw ups in sales, major.
More than I can count.
Yeah. And yet, you know what? You keep coming back. And yet it would have been easy for us to stay down for the count. No. But again, you begin to realize that others are going through the same problem, et cetera, and life works out. But it all starts with your own headset. If your head is not screwed on right, nothing's going to happen. Yeah.
So I made a couple notes here, and I'm still back on the prospecting thing and the TAM conversation we were just having here. And Brandon, we get people all the time, right? Oh, my TAM or my prospects are too small, or there's not enough people in my world that are on LinkedIn or that are on social or whatever. If you just sat down and you kind of took your customer and then basically from there kind of built the ecosystem, right, which surrounds that customer, their partners, whatever the case may be, all of a sudden your TAM, quote unquote TAM, gets way, way more massive. Your relationship or your ecosystem gets way more massive. And, Brandon, I think that eliminates a lot of this where we hear people, well, my customer's not on LinkedIn or they're not on social. But yeah, their partners may be, their customers may be, and you may be able to connect them and then end up having them on LinkedIn or on social or whatever the case
and
may be.
I think a lot of times when it's, oh, my people aren't on LinkedIn, what they're really saying is the small percent of my TAM who are currently in market aren't responding to my outreach messages where I'm asking them for a demo. I mean, that's really what they're saying, right? But it comes to, well, my people aren't on LinkedIn because it's easier to blame the tool or blame the prospects than to actually take responsibility for our behavior, which is stop spamming people messages asking them for a demo when you don't know anything about them. You don't know if they're even in market. You haven't earned any sort of credibility. You haven't asked the questions. You haven't shown up giving information. Like, you've done everything else wrong, but you just get to that stage and say, oh, it doesn't work because they're not responding. Because, when I show up and I tell everybody, hey, I can give you a demo, everybody should start running and show up and be ready for my demo, right? I mean, is that kind of what you were talking about too, Tom?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, but you just, right, we get scarcity, I guess is what I was looking at. A lot of times there's a scarcity of prospects, a scarcity of opportunity. And when you really start to look at the ecosystem and you look at how you can leverage that ecosystem with the value, the scarcity aspect kind of just goes away and it just gives you a lot more freedom, is what I see.
You know what? And that's another difference between the average performer and the top performer. Because the average performer looks at things from a scarcity mindset, and the top performer, there's abundance. There's abundance. There are more opportunities out there today than ever, and they're actually easier reach. Oh, nobody answers the phone. Nobody responds. Hold it. Do you think it was ever easy? No, it wasn't. Okay, excuse me. So I mean, again, it's we have more ways to reach people, but it comes down to, are you going to blame your tool or is it you?
Your outcome is going to come down to how you understand the total addressable market, what you're willing to do to go out there and create relationships. And Mark, you said something really important again earlier about it's not winning a deal. I believe that great relationships beget deals. I don't believe I'm a great salesperson. I'm very resourceful, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to take big swings and go out and make bold asks and do everything I can to understand how to create relationships that I don't have. What relationships am I going to need in order to get done what I want to get done? Where are these folks? How do I go out and get a meeting with them? What do I need to say to get that meeting? We're always thinking 5 steps ahead, or we're trying to categorize it into, I need this demo. That's not true. You just need a conversation. And I wouldn't want to pigeonhole my first conversation into, hey, I want to talk about this one product. I don't. Maybe that's what I want to sell, but you're not going to get a conversation by trying to talk about the one product that you want to sell. You're going to get a conversation by showing up, talking about, or trying to talk about what matters to your customer. And sometimes, if you think about it, it's going to be, how can I, or how can my company create a better relationship with this company that I want to talk to? and the companies that they want to talk to. And if I can go out and make that relationship better, that's what's going to earn you that seat in the room. And then once you get in there, it comes down to the good old fundamentals of relationship building and sales. But the tools and the landscape looks different now than ever before. We're in a position of power. And I think one of the things, Mark, too, that I respect so much about you, like you've worked with so many high caliber, name brand organizations. You've created this credibility and brand that anybody would kill for. It didn't necessarily like start out like that. You've built this body of work. But I think the key thing is we're all sellers sitting here today. Like, what have been the biggest learnings that you've had along the way that we should be having our eyes on?
Yeah, here's one. It's consistency and stay in the game. You and I have had this conversation, Carson, that top performers lead a very boring life because, again, it's such a routine.
I love routine.
Right. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I start my day the exact same way every day. I mean, I go through certain steps of things and I do not deviate from that. And I know that it's consistency, it's day in and day out. And I realize that I'm playing a long game. It's when I begin thinking it's a short game. This is the difference between average performers and top performers. Average performers are focused on just this quarter. Long, top performers are focused at least 6 months out, 6, 9, 12 months out. They're looking down the road. They're saying, and they manage their pipeline accordingly. And this is so key. And they also realize that, you know what? If this doesn't happen right now at this moment, it's okay. It's okay. It's going to come. There's another swing at the ball, and you keep staying in the game. And you also have to realize that much of what you do is going to fail. That's okay. I mean, look at it. Hey, in Major League Baseball, if you're batting 300, you're commanding a pretty fat paycheck. You just have to stay in the game. But here's the piece. You've got to be willing to work at it. I'm going to use Tom Brady. I think without a doubt, greatest NFL quarterback that's ever played the game. He doesn't just show up for games. The level. We got a Joe Montana in the house. I know that's right. You're a 49ers fan. Okay. Anyway, so Joe.
Brady's great. Don't get me wrong. Brady's great.
I don't care. We can put Joe Montana in there too. But both of them, you think about the number of hours that they spend on the practice field. You spend about the number of hours they spend in the film room. They are constant. And this, again, is the difference between average people and great people. Great people are continuously working at their craft. They never accept anything, but not perfection, the next level. It's interesting. We've gotten in the habit of saying best practices. We should throw that out. These are our best right now. We're going to come up with even better practices. We're going to come up with better ones. I mean, I had a call the other day where I just caught myself and I used a line and I go, wow, that was great. That was man. I mean, I'm using that line again. And all it was this subtle piece that I was in a conversation with a senior level person talking about an upcoming sales meeting, talking about some other stuff that they want me to do for them. And they lay this out. And I just said, what do you think we should do to address this issue? What should we do? I could have sent over a proposal, but I wanted to hear from them. What do you think we should do? And the person said, I'm really eager to see what you could provide us. So what'd that do? That suddenly gave me the entree, but now it wasn't me telling them I'm going to send you over a proposal. Yeah. It was them saying, hey, send me a proposal. Send me a plan.
It's powerful.
And it's just, and it was just a shift of one word.
Yeah. Be a student.
Yeah.
I always like to say monotony is better than misery. Embrace discipline. And then, being consistent and being resilient. Like again, I'm not a great salesperson, but I'm like Rocky in Rocky 1. I may be fighting the heavyweight champion of the world, but I will keep getting up in the 14th round, even when my trainer tells me to stay on the mat. Like, you can't, will not keep me in a box. And if you have that mentality, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve in sales.
But you know what? That takes that inner strength. It takes you're surrounding yourself. You have a belief, you have a personal faith, you understand, you're solid in who you are. And that is absolutely key. Right. I mean, we get kicked down all the time.
I always crack up when Carson says, I'm not a great salesperson. Then he lists off like the 6 things he does every day. And, I just do this and I just do that and I just do this, but I'm not very good. It's all about
process and focus and other people. And it's reality. Like
it's strategies and systems, right? Like John Maxwell says, motivation gets you going. And I think that's where a lot of salespeople start or stop, right? Motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you going, as John Maxwell says it. And I think so often we talk to people in sales that got that initial motivation. I'm going to go make money. I'm going to go do this. And they don't have the systems in place to keep them going, and they get haphazard. And then what do? We blame the tool. We blame the platform. We blame the customer. We blame something else. And
what does Mike Tyson say? It's all fun and games until you get punched in the mouth. Oh, yeah. I mean, what you do after you get your face kicked in, that's going to determine your success or lack thereof in sales or in life.
That's why the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, a non-sales book, is such a critical sales book.
Yeah. That's like we talk, Cups, Michael Cups, who's been on our show and he's part of our coaching group. He's got a book called Time Bandits that we refer to a lot. And it's the same thing. It's like, hey, what you got to identify, what's stealing your time and how are you owning it and protecting it? And I think it's the same with Atomic Habits. Oh. So everybody, real quick, I got Tom, before you go that, everybody, because most of our audience is on LinkedIn. And there was the first time this ever happened on X, that was somebody kind of bombarded us and called us all a few different names and things, left Mark alone, which was really nice. So when we were laughing and kind of all over the place, that's what was going on. So Josh, thanks for your LinkedIn comment here. We should throw that up there, at least, get back to some sort of normalcy with our show.
I thought it was kind of fun. It's good that it's signs of success, right? Is when we're getting all that.
You know what? I mean, again,
that's right.
It means somebody's watching.
Virtual tomatoes are good.
There you go.
That's right. So, I think that we need to take this episode, put it through Chat GPT, because I think we got a book that came out of this episode alone on some of the I have like 3 pages of notes here.
Amazing.
Mark, thank you.
Read Tom GPT's version. Like, I'd love to see.
Shouldn't you put this through Copilot?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Well,
Mark, I appreciate you. Yes. Our stock goes up during this episode.
I can't afford Copilot, so I just go use GPT. It's fine.
You can't afford not to have Copilot.
Ooh, look at there's Mark. Right. There's Mark coming up with the sales lesson.
Lord. Need to get you at a sales kickoff, Mark.
Yep. Carson, can you send me a proposal for Copilot? He's convinced me. I got to do it. So,
Carson's going to say, Tom, how are we going to solve this problem? That's what I learned from Mark today.
That's right.
I'd rather help you meet your customers better, Tom, than sell you anything.
So I think we're going to get a book out of this, because there's some really good, and the prospecting stuff and whatever was just really, really gold. And I think Brandon ties into all of this stuff that we keep talking about, LinkedIn and the new modern selling strategies and so forth. So thank you, Mark.
Quick too, what I loved about it is this is more and more top of mind, I think, with sellers. Like, I got a message from someone today. Again, there's a bunch of sellers with open text that are in their SKO events. And one of them said, look, I'm naturally an introvert. I've avoided this social selling thing. I've avoided LinkedIn as long as I possibly could. But I'm in a place now where I have to take my personal brand serious. And that's why, he reached out. And today's topic of building our credibility I think looking at LinkedIn, if it's coming down to credibility, it comes down to how we serve our TAM, how we show up. And Mark, you said it earlier, our reputation comes before us; it precedes us. We have this really cool 24/7, virtual conference, if you will, that everybody's on it in some way, shape, or form, and you can actually influence your own reputation by what you produce, where you comment, how you show up, how consistent you show up, and therefore influence that reputation that you have in order to start opening up more conversations with customers. I just think it's so timely right now, is that I think more salespeople are coming to that awareness of, I've got to do something different. I got to look at LinkedIn and take it a bit more serious.
I think that is so spot on, because again, social media is a great tool. LinkedIn is such if you're in the B2B space, such a powerful tool. But you got to use it, and you can't just post and ghost. To quote our friend Bryn Tillman, do not post and ghost.
God, that's gold,
right? But I didn't come up with that.
See, another thing from
or at least that's who I heard it from. But you got to interact. It's a conversational platform, and it doesn't mean you have to be out there hours every day. I'm on LinkedIn maybe 10 minutes a day. That's it. But you use your time wisely, efficiently, and you go. But it's consistency. It's not being out there once and then not showing up again for 6 months. You do have to be out there every week. I mean, I think we're at the point that you got to be out there every week, at least 10 or 15 a week.
So I think we can say consistency equals credibility. It's the show about credibility.
I like that. So. That's a tweetable moment.
A little quotable.
There it is.
Yeah.
I love it.
There we go.
We're going to stay off Twitter, though. We no more.
Yeah, let's stay off Twitter. We need to get on Reddit. Then we can really start getting.
They just did the IPO, so I mean
that's right.
That's right.
Yeah. That's it. All right.
Well, thanks again, everybody. Thanks for the comments. Great comments. Mark, we'll get you a copy of the book when it comes out. We'll have you do the forward here. And Brandon, Carson, thank you. Carson, do you want to wrap us up?
Mark, I'll see you in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Mark, thank you for joining us. Tom, Brandon, great as always. Audience, thank most of you, maybe all but one. And until next time, happy modern selling.
Bye, everybody.